Sit for him. Sit. Good boy. Yes, my boy. Sit. Down. 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 Yes, my boy. Down. All right. Roll over. Oh, come on. Don't embarrass me in front of the camera. I know you know how to do this. He knows how to do this. Down. Roll over. Roll over. Okay, good enough. Hey, my name's Ryan, and welcome to Training in the Yard. Whoa. Episode 6. Here we go. So, y'all know by now, we're going to get started with our warm-up. And for our warm-up today, we are literally just going to go for a walk with this guy right here. Just take about 20 minutes or so, just to take him on a good, long, somewhat quick walk. If you've got a dog, that is one of the greatest warm-ups you could ever do, you know. Killing two birds with one stone kind of thing. Taking your dog for a walk, which it deserves. And then also, you're getting your warm-up, so can't beat that. And I figure while we're doing this, we can just reflect on the wonderful time we've spent together in my yard over the past 2 weeks. Man, what great memories we've shared. I definitely think it's fair to ask, what were you trying to get out of this? And what was the point of all of this? And initially, I wouldn't have had a really good answer for you. The idea, I think, just came to me when I started Christmas break and just kind of went with it. And since then, I think I do have a good answer for the question of, well, what were you expecting to get out of training in your yard? It's always hard for me to speak in blanket statements or to like share my opinion on what I think is, you know, the mass interpretation of something. In this case, what I'm referencing is the fitness industry, but I'm going to do it anyway. And so it seems to me that the kind of content that I see now in reference to training and fitness falls within 3 predominant categories. The first is this idea of optimization and detailing every single part of your session and your life and the equipment that you use and the nutrition that you're eating and the exercises within your program, right? Just going through all of that with a fine-tooth comb and trying to optimize every single part of that. That definitely falls into the science-based theme as well, which is one of the other large categories I'm speaking of. And there's a lot of overlap there. And the science-based content that does extremely well on social media, it's almost like that word is a buzzword now, that if you use science-based, evidence-based, like you're inherently garnering attention just by simply using that. And I don't know exactly why that is, but it's definitely something I've noticed. And the third, and I think this is the most unfortunate, is using fitness, the boundaries of what we accept within fitness as a means to potentially share a link in your bio or something like that, you know what I mean? And this last one in particular, it seems that whenever I engage with certain social media platforms, I come across that last one the most. The worst part about these shots is like setting the camera down and then running to get to the place where I'm going to turn around. I know how Les Stroud feels on Survivor Man. Excellent show, by the way. It's all on YouTube now, which is just crazy. Such a high quality product, and the OG survival guy. And look, I'm not commenting any further on any of those categories, especially the science-based and optimization crowds. Like, a ton of great content has been delivered from that narrative, and I'm not critiquing that. I'm simply observing or sharing my observation that that's the majority of the content that I come across on social media right now, and it seems to do really, really well. With that being said, like, I don't think that that kind of content is the only kind of content that you should be consuming regarding training. Check this out. Just a cool little spot in my neighborhood walk that I felt like would be a cool place to get a shot from. I mean, y'all keep hearing me harp about that cinematography. I mean, look at me. Look at what I'm delivering to y'all. These gorgeous visuals. I'll end this opening discussion with this. Although science is really, really good, in fact, probably the best philosophical tool that we have to collect objective information, because it is so strongly intertwined with objectivity, you miss the subjective part and like what it means to just participate, experience, and go through something with your own emotions, and then to pull out from that experience your own information and your own interpretation of the world. And so, I guess my point is this. Always remember that you are not a robot, and your life is not a science experiment that exists in a controlled vacuum where all of the variables can be accounted for. And as a corollary to that, your training doesn't have to be that way either. Now, it can certainly fall on a spectrum depending upon how rigid you want to get with making it a science experiment. And if you feel like the more scientific you can make your training in nature, then by all means, if that's what keeps you accountable and allows you to continue making progress, continue doing so. I am only saying that that is not the only lens that you have to view training through. It can be one of many that you use. In fact, it probably should be one that you use, but it doesn't have to be the main one. And so, in conclusion, I strongly recommend that in the year 2025, you seek out training that you find meaning in. And that is an individual journey, and I can't really give you any advice on that outside of just trying to do it. You know, whether you're an Olympic weightlifter and you want to set a PR in the snatch and clean and jerk, or a power lifter and you want to set a PR squat, bench, or deadlift. Or if you don't really fall into any kind of category and you just enjoy the process and the exploration of physical movement, whatever it is, there's an infinite array of ways that you can design training and experience the absolute joy of pushing your body to its limits and making it adapt to the environment that you put it in. And it is in that process that I find the most enjoyment. It is in the do, you know what I'm saying? It is in the actual performing of the act. It's not necessarily in any of the outcomes, although those are important. And I think that this series of just going out in my backyard and training hard has revealed that to me now more than ever, and just helped me solidify the fact that, man, I just love training, and I just love doing it no matter where I am, no matter who I'm with, no matter what equipment I have, training is fun, baby. And if this series has helped you realize anything of significance on that line of thinking, well then, this was all worth it. So, with that out of the way, let's get moving on to the mobility portion of the session. All right, let's go ahead and get our station kind of organized for this first part of the session. We need to clear everything off of this platform. All right, we're gonna go through 3 different exercises, 2 rounds of each. The first is a spine mobility piece that I like to do, and literally all I'm gonna do is just hang from this bar. I'm telling you, this is one of the greatest stretches you can ever do. Just grab on to any pull-up bar, start hanging and start moving. Just find different ways to wiggle and twist. Push yourself forward, pull yourself back. Hang in different ways. Hang with one arm and lean into it. There's no right or wrong. Everything is good. And just spend like a minute just wiggling around. And tell me how much mobile your upper body feels after something like this. Greatest stretch of all time right there. Next thing I'm gonna do is you're gonna grab this barbell, do a few muscle cleans. Just pick it up, turn it over in the front rack, but not to get into a power catch or a clean catch. Just gonna catch it tall, Start working on that turnover. And on this last one, I'll stay in that front rack and just move my elbows in front of the bar, help loosen up that front rack. Because we got a big exercise to end this episode off with, to end this series off with. Well, really a couple big exercises. Last thing we're gonna do is just some ankle sits. Literally just put your feet behind you and lean back and go as far as you can or as far as you're comfortable going. You can lean back and you put your hands on the ground. If you're just an absolute rubber band, right? You can even put your elbows on the ground or not even have any of your arms on the ground and like collapse your back onto the ground. That's a level of mobility, flexibility that I wish I possessed, but that'll happen when frickin' pigs fly. That'll happen when the frickin' cows come home. No, I don't think that works. Does that work? I'm just gonna run through that one more time. All right, next piece we're gonna get into are some depth jumps. Now, most academic pieces you'll read on the depth jump like paint this jump as the most intense jump you could ever do. It's not that crazy, especially if you've been jumping. It probably wouldn't be the jump that I recommend if you're just starting to get into plyometrics, but if you've been doing them for a month or two, just get onto a bench, go to an intensity that you can handle. But other than that, these should be fine and they're a great jump to do. We're gonna go 2 sets of 3, and first set I'm just gonna kind of test the springs a little bit. Second set I'll put some mustard on. Oh boy. Springs didn't feel too springy there. Felt more like something that's not springy. I can't think of a good analogy though.
A block.
All right, there's one set. One of the biggest cues I could give you for this, just to get the most out of them, is to try to spend the least amount of time on the ground as possible. So as soon as you feel your feet touch, you want every fiber in your being screaming at you to get off the ground as quickly as possible. But that's hard to do with this 275-pound husky frame. I don't weigh 275 pounds. What do I weigh?
260?
Oh. I thought it was like 250. I thought I'd been doing good losing weight. Guess not. I think there's no better way to end the last episode of this series with a couple of the best exercises known to man. The first one we're going to do is the power clean to split jerk. So I'm going to put my weightlifting shoes on that have seen better days, especially after just abusing them in the yard like this. But the prescription for the day on these is to start light and then go heavy for 1 rep. It's really the best strength training prescription you ever need. Start light with a weight you can do and then keep adding weight until you reach a weight that feels heavy.
Oh yes. Sometimes my genius it's almost frightening today. Oh my.
All right, let's clean up the platform a little bit for this. Get this squat rack off. And what I'm gonna have to do, because this is just a 4x8 platform and not 8x8, I'm gonna have to lift this way because when I do the split jerk, I need enough width for my feet to be able to actually do the split jerk. And I'm afraid if I go this way, I might come off. So that's why we're gonna do it facing this way. A bit colder today than it's been in previous episodes and not really feeling too awful warm just yet. So gonna continue to prolong the warm up and just kind of move around a little bit, take my time. And once I start feeling sweaty and ready to go, that's when I'll start getting into going for something heavy. Hamstrings feel a little tight after those burners I did yesterday. Alright, we're getting there. Just gonna get a few more stretches in and I'll feel ready to go. There is a certain point too, at least for me, where it's like, listen man, just go for it. That first swing off the tee always feels a little bit rusty, but then you get into your 10th swing and you feel like a new man or a woman. The human body, truly incapable, and we are fortunate enough to inhabit these vessels. Oh, listen to me. Come on, that was just off the top of the dome right there. Whenever I start adding weight, I can't help but think of King Theoden in The Lord of the Rings.
So it begins.
My wife is sitting there like, this guy is just an absolute idiot. Half the stuff he says, I have no idea what he's talking about. Ooh, I didn't even realize this is gonna turn these into a bit of a deficit also. About, I don't know, 3-inch deficit or so. That'll be fun. Let's just do a few powers here. Oh. Gotta be honest, I feel like an old tugboat today. An old tugboat that takes at least 2 hours to get started. But boy, oh boy, you know that tugboat is worth its salt. And if you've got a big boat stuck, this is an awful analogy, and there's no other tugboat, you can rely on this tugboat, baby. Really long and drawn out way of saying, hey, listen, I'll be fine. I just gotta freaking lock in here. All right, let's do one more rep with 135, and then we'll start adding some weight. All right, I think 335 is a good goal to shoot for. Not just gonna like absolutely send it, but I do want to build up to a heavy single, and I think that'll be a good number to shoot for. These plates being at a deficit is making it a lot harder than I thought, and I still just need to wake up, so let's see how it goes. But that's the number in mind. Something I've pondered after inquiring on motor control and motor learning a lot more in these past 2 years is if fatigue, particularly mental fatigue, in the acute presence of mental fatigue, how much can that impact your tolerance for learning? If learning is essentially dependent upon the functioning of our synapses and however that mental fatigue is manifested, whatever physiological mechanism, right? Is there a specific physiological mechanism that would decrease your tolerance for learning more than others? Like, what if for some reason you are just slightly below your baseline in your production of glutamate, one of the most excitatory neurotransmitters that we have? Or what if it's just like a general mental fatigue and you didn't sleep that well last night? And the only reason I say any of this is today feels like when I was training in Lamar County, which I was a coach there, and I coached middle school strength training. I was driving 90 minutes every day to and fro from work, and I was just so exhausted. And that is when I started learning Olympic weightlifting, and it just felt incredibly hard. Like Olympic weightlifting, learning it at an older age is difficult in and of itself, but combining that with mental fatigue, sometimes I had some of the most frustrating sessions, man. However, I will say this, many of those sessions, when I was in that environment, felt incredibly sticky, or like just so much more valuable because of the emotional attachment to them and how frustrated I got sometimes. Like that period of my life, in many of those sessions, I had a lot of aha moments that I don't know if I would have generated otherwise. If you feel like you're like at a point of a plateau with your technique, or you feel like, you know, there's just some breakthrough that you need and you're feeling frustrated, keep going, because there's something to be gained on the other side of that emotional boundary. I don't get out of bed for anything less than 2 plates and a quarter. I didn't feel the typical violence and brushing of the contact there that I normally do, and I would attribute that to the deficit, most likely. Synapses are starting to fire. Come on now. Come on. Where's that other 2.5? There you are. 335 is in the cards. 2 sets away. I'll go 300, 315, and then we'll send it 335. So just to show you what we're working with here, not only am I dealing with the deficit of the platform, but I'm also dealing with the deficit of the plates smashing into the ground, creating an indentation there. So that's a pretty serious deficit. So I'm gonna move the plates back a little bit, because that's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 plus inches of deficit. Just making this lift really, really hard. Smooth as butter, baby. Is that the best I got? I think so. Terrible with the analogies today. Usually I have a few good ones, but let me just apologize in advance for any other zinger I throw out there today. Ow. Sometimes when you're going for a big lift for the day, it helps not to think all that much and try to take a little less time than you normally would from your last warm-up set to your top set. And just give yourself less time to think. Less time for any doubts or anything like that to creep in. Just kind of go about your business and let it fly. Donde está la biblioteca? All right, the next thing we got going on today are good old-fashioned high bar squats, baby. So let's get the platform ready for that. All right, there we go. The prescription for the day is beltless, sleeveless, and you know what we're gonna do? We're just gonna completely raw dog this thing. One heavy set of 5, here we go. Already warm, so this isn't gonna take too awful long at all. Let's just go plate by plate until we get to the weight for the date of today. So you thought I was gonna hit you another rhyme there, but can't let you know my next move. Gotta be honest, I am a believer in rooting your feet into the ground. Already I can just feel the imbalances in my body beginning to shift in my favor. I mean, truly incredible. I love the insult of telling someone to go touch grass. That's just diabolical. Oh yeah. If I was stuck on an island and I could only choose one exercise and one prescription for that exercise, it'd be high bar back squats, sets of 5. Don't ask me why, you don't need any rationale, you just need to know that it's the best thing you could ever do for your strength. All right, I'm gonna go with some metal plates here, just to mitigate some of the precariousness of this operation I have going on here. Yeah. Yep. Nice and easy. Let's add a quarter. See how that feels. I'd love to hit 495 for this set of 5. That'd be pretty cool on a day like today, considering just everything. This set right here will help me be a really good judge of that. A lot of my training these days is just feel, based on feel, particularly in terms of the numbers that I choose to hit. And one of the best indicators of a number that I'd like to hit, or the number that I want to go for, is my last warm-up set. So I'm really going to pay attention to this one and try to also lock in some and create a similar environment in terms of arousal that I will have for my top set as well. So this will be really, really good judge for what I'm going to do after. Oh man, I've got some pretty crazy bar whip going on because I'm using these bumper plates and they're so wide. What to do, decisions. It was always 495 pounds. That was an absolutely wicked set, dude. Holy. Alright, I definitely know better than this, especially with that bar whip and the plates bouncing. Should have put some clips on, just because, you know, if a plate fell off of one side, you're obviously incredibly imbalanced and the set is over, absolutely over at that point. So I should have put some clips on, especially if you're in a public gym or somewhere where there's other patrons around. Be responsible. Don't be like me. That was idiotic of me. But I will also say, this rack is literally designed for 495 pounds, where it says that the limit is 500 pounds. And it held up well for its first testing of that. I don't think I'll ever go beyond that if I ever use this rack for heavy squats again, but we talked about it in the previous episode. And just so you know, in fact, it does hold 500 pounds. All right, you know what time it is. And it is time for the Training in the Yard book review. Today I have a book that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Now, I just need to be totally honest and say that I haven't read this book in probably, I'm 30 now, and I probably read it when I was like 22 or 23. So I have to say that to say, you know what, like the inner workings of this book in specific passages are a bit blurry to me, and I can't really touch on those. But what I will always remember about this book are two things. I used to have a mentor whose name is Evan, and when I was a personal trainer, which was my first job after graduating from college and getting my bachelor's, I was a personal trainer at Lifetime, and Evan was my personal training manager there, and he inspired me to read. That dude was one of the sharpest individuals that I have ever come across, and he attributed a lot of his sharpness and his knowledge to reading. He always had a book on the menu, and every other week or so I'd ask him, Evan, what are you reading, man? And he'd say a different book. And even when you went into his office, he had all the books he read displayed behind him. It was just really cool. And one day he was reading Start With Why, and I just picked up a copy for my own. And in that book, the author mentions this book. So that's really cool in that, like, once you start your reading journey, you don't really ever have to worry about what you're going to read next, because the material that you're reading will just lead you down this authentic path of reading material. And I'm so incredibly blessed that this was really the second book that I ever read once I really started taking reading seriously and I had the opportunity to choose what I read. Viktor Frankl, the author of this book, was unfortunately taken to the Nazi death camps. He spent a large portion of time there, and this entire book is about his journey through that experience and how he miraculously found a way to derive meaning from that. And I think just reading about that experience through that perspective is one of the most awe-inspiring and great reads you can ever have. And this is one of the best books I've ever read. However, there is one instance in this book that I will always remember, no matter how far removed I am from my initial reading, and that is the power of your belief system, and how strongly you believe in something will fundamentally change your perception of the world. There's an instance in the book where Viktor Frankl and his companions in the camp had gotten a rumor, I believe, that the war was going to be over soon and that they were going to be liberated within like 2 to 3 days. But come to find out that that was just a rumor, or was like misinformation spread throughout the camp. And one of his companions was, although I think in decent spirits before that news and in really good spirits when he heard the news, he had completely lost his will after that, which understandably so. And I believe he passed within like a few days after realizing that they weren't going to be saved as soon as they thought they were. And just reading that passage and how authentic Viktor Frankl spoke about it just stuck out to me when I read it initially, and it always just inhabits a place in my mind, in that your willpower is so incredibly strong, and probably in some way it is tied to your physiology. If we're applying that concept to training, you know, you got to believe in your ability to get better. You need to believe in your program. You need to believe in your body and its capacity for adaptation. Believe in it. Believe in yourself. And I think that you may be reaping more gains than you might otherwise. Thank you, Viktor Frankl, for sharing your incredible experience. And it's truly amazing to read a book like this. And I strongly encourage that you do as well. You. I had pushed myself these last 2 weeks, that is for sure. I pushed myself not only in the physical domain, but also mentally as well. Just like trying to come up with these workouts and editing these videos, and also being present for friends and family during the holiday season. Definitely a lot, and it was a busy season, but I think that there is a lot to be gained from this. I want to say thank you to everyone who's tuned in, and also to everyone who may tune into this series in the future. I really truly enjoy making content like this, specifically long-form content, and I think that this is something that I am going to make a goal of mine for the year of 2025, is to try to put out better training content and paint training in a positive light, because I think that we need that. And so here's to a great 2025. I look forward to continuing this training journey with you all, and may you all find meaning in your training. Training is fun. You.